Hi kids, today we are starting the second story which itself has two stories. So basically this is the second chapter named The Lost Spring. And this chapter, this Lost Spring, is having stories of stolen childhood. So if I just look at Lost Spring and the line written next to it, that is stories of stolen childhood, it is actually telling you that this chapter has two stories, two short stories, and those short stories are about children, young children whose childhood has been taken away, and therefore we called it as Lost Spring. That spring is when we say that the new trees, new plants, they are budding, they are growing, they are coming. So new life is there and they are just growing and developing. They are in the budding stage, right? And here we are comparing that with children who are to be nurtured, जिनका बहुत ख्याल रखना पड़ता है, and they are in their growing age. So the plants are compared to the children here who are small, tender, they need care, they need love, attention, right? And here we are saying that lost spring, which means that care, that warmth, that nurture that should have been given to these new budding plants, new budding trees, they are lost, right? They've been taken away. That care, that love that should have been given to them, that nurturing that should have been given to them has been taken away. So same is here. The stories about the children, where it's the stolen childhood, from whom we say that their childhood had been taken away because of the circumstances of life. And there are various examples of children across the world where we say that those children in the age when they should be protected, they should be loved, they should be given certain care, love, warmth, they should be nurtured properly, so much care should be given to them. But due to the conditions of life, many children are deprived of all this. And this is what we say is the lost spring. That is the stories about the love that has been taken away from them and so many other things. And therefore, it is the stories of stolen childhood. The childhood has been taken away from them, right? So we have two stories here and each one is talking about some or the other child, right? We have two main characters in each story and what is their life condition and how we say that yes, their childhood has been taken away from them. So let's quickly start with the narration of the first story followed by the second one. So I'm going to give you a brief outline about the stories first. So the first story is about a boy, Sahib, who is a very small boy, a young boy, and he is a rag picker, a garbage picker, right? So a story is about him. So we can still, I'm not going to say anything further, but you get the plot that yes, there is a small boy who is a rag picker, that is one who picks collects things from the garbage. So the story revolves around this boy. And the second story is about a young boy called Mukesh, and he is a bangle maker. He's belonging from a family who have been from generations into the bangle making industry. So there are two plots and here we are building upon the story. So let's start with the narration. So first about the author. Our author is Anis Jung. She has written these two stories and was born in Rourkela and spent her childhood and adolescence in Hyderabad. She received her education in Hyderabad and in the United States of America. Her parents were both writers. Anis Jung began her career as a writer in India. She has been an editor and columnist for major newspapers in India and abroad and has authored several books. The following is an excerpt from her book titled Lost Spring, Stories of Stolen Childhood. Here she analyzes the grinding poverty and traditions which condemn these children into a life of exploitation. So the stories, the two plots that I've been talking about, the first one being a small boy, Sahib, who is a garbage picker, and the second one is about a young boy called Mukesh, who is into a bangle making industry. So because of the poverty, the conditions of their life have been so terrible that their innocence, their the age where they should have been taken care of and should have been prevented from the hazardous life of these bangle making industries and this unhygienic conditions of garbage and all, but that is not taken away from them, right? So their childhood is rather taken away from them because of the grinding poverty, the traditions and the life situations. So after knowing the plot, let's start with the narration of the first story. The first story is Sometimes I Find a Rupee in the Garbage. So this is about that young boy, the small boy called Sahib, who is actually a rag picker. He is collecting the garbage, and then what is he doing? Sometimes I find a rupee in the garbage. So whenever, when these little boys who collect the garbage, they kind of, try to look for things that might be of their use from the garbage. So basically they are searching the garbage. So probably there could have been situations when we as adults, or we kind of throw away garbage. Some leftovers are also being thrown, some kind of, let's say, shoes, some clothes, some uneaten food, so that has been thrown away. But these little kids, they try to find and look for that, they search for these things that might be of some use to them. And for them, it is like a very good thing, because they are finding something that they could utilize, they could use, which we have discarded. So, sometimes I find a rupee in the garbage. Why do you do this? I ask Sahib, whom I encountered every morning scrounging for gold in the garbage dumps of my neighborhood. So, who is asking? I is the author. I is the author, right? And she is asking Sahib that, every morning she finds this boy and she sees that this boy is just scrounging. Scrounging means searching. That this boy is always searching for gold in the garbage dumps in her neighborhood. So gold is not literally the gold, precious metal that we are talking about, but for us, maybe gold is actually the jewelry, the precious metal. But for many, like Sahib, who are actually belonging in a very poverty-stricken condition, and they are living nearby, and they are the ones who are collecting garbage. So for them, gold means that whenever they are searching for garbage, they find some material which is very damaged but could have been used for them. So things that could be used by them, so which are found in the garbage. So that's what is gold for these boys like Sahib. Things that could be used by them. So basically what is happening? Sahib is a boy who is searching for garbage for some things that he could use, and the author is witnessing this on an everyday basis, and therefore she questions him that why do you do this? So Sahib left his home long ago. Set amidst the green fields of Dhaka, his home is not even a distant memory. There were many storms that swept away their fields and homes. His mother tells him. That's why they left, looking for gold in the big city where he lives now. I have nothing else to do, he mutters, looking away. Go to school, I say, glibly, realizing immediately how hollow that advice must sound. There is no school in my neighborhood. When they build one, I will go. So here, when this boy is looking for things in the garbage, so the author questions him that why are you looking for this, or why do you do this? So this boy tells him that I have nothing else to do. This is the only way, this is the only thing that I am aware of, and I have nothing else to do. So, very reflex of the movement, the author says that, okay, why don't you go to school? But the moment she said this, she realized that how silly or how cruel she might have sounded to that poor boy. Obviously, the condition of the boy is not good, and probably he could not afford to go to school. But then the boy says that there is no school in my neighborhood. So probably where he's staying, there is no school nearby, and he says that whenever there is a school in his community, in his locality, he would definitely go to a school. And then the background is said that Sahib actually is not from India. He belongs, he was living in Dhaka, which is in Bangladesh. But because there were too many storms, too many floods, so all their fields and their house has been swept away, and therefore they have migrated from Dhaka to India, and here they are living, right? If I start a school, will you come? I ask, half joking. Yes, he says, smiling broadly. So when the boy says that there is no school in my locality and therefore I can't go, and whenever there is a school, then I would definitely go to one. So the author says that, okay, what if I build a school? Will you come there? So the child says, yes. A few days later, I see him running up to me. Is your school ready? So now, after a few days, the child probably is very hopeful, because the way the author spoke to him, probably he felt that yes, she is going to build a school for him. So when after a few days the boy saw the author, he came running to her all with a lot of hope and a lot of expectations, and he just questioned her that, have you built that school? Is your school ready? Because this shows that he wanted to go to a school. And then, it takes longer to build a school. I say, embarrassed at having made a promise that was not meant. So now the author is embarrassed, because when the child came running to her and asked that, have you built the school? Is your school ready? So the child was hopeful. He was actually expecting that the lady, the author, was actually going to build a school. However, the author is embarrassed that maybe this seems to be a promise which she never really meant to make a promise to the child, which will give him some false hope. But then the child is already under the impression that yes, she is going to do something for the child. She is going to build a school for them, and therefore the only thing that she could tell him here was that it takes a little long. Like a school can't be built so in a couple of days. It takes time to build a school. But promises like mine abound in every corner of his bleak world. So she's saying that, she's thinking in the back of the mind that, maybe they are used to people making such false promises to them, and mine would just sound like one. Like people come, maybe they talk to them, they give them some false hopes, false, expectations. And probably Sahib, his world, people belonging to his community, they're used to being surrounded by such false news, such false hopes. After months of knowing him, I ask him his name. Sahib-e-Alam, he announces. He does not know what it means. If he knew its meaning, Lord of the universe, he would have a hard time believing it. Unaware of what his name represents, he roams the streets with his friends, an army of barefoot boys who appear like the morning birds and disappear at noon. Over them, I have come to recognize, over the time, I've come to recognize each of them. So what has happened? That when she says that yes, it takes time to make a school. So now, after a couple of interactions, after a few months, the boy, finally the author questions the boy that, what is your name? And he says that my name is Sahib-e-Alam. So the author, when she heard his name, she just started thinking that probably the boy does not know the literal, that is the real meaning of his name, Sahib-e-Alam, which means Lord of the universe. And she thinks that what if he gets to know that yes, the meaning of his name is Lord of the universe, he would never be able to believe it. Why? Because he's living in such a poverty, the basic necessities of life is not there. His childhood is just childhood is just taken away. His innocence is being taken away. And imagine telling him that yes, his name means that he is the Lord of the universe. He would never believe that. Why? Because always he's roaming around with a group of boys who are all barefoot. Why? Because they do not have shoes to wear. They are so poor. And then over the period of time, the author says that I've realized I can recognize each of those boys. Why aren't you wearing chappals? I ask one. My mother did not bring them down from the shelf. He answers simply. So now the author asks him that why aren't you wearing some slippers or some chappals? Then the boy says that my mother has not, it's kept in the shelf and my mother hasn't given it to me. It's not taken out. She's not taken it out from the shelf. And this is why I'm not wearing. So he's very, it's not like he's feeling embarrassed or he's sad about it, that why someone is questioning him on that. No, he's simply saying that because it's kept in the shelf and my mother hasn't taken it out and given it to me. Even if she did, he will throw them off, adds another who is wearing shoes that do not match. When I comment on it, he shuffles his feet and says nothing. I want shoes, says a third boy who has never owned a pair all his life. So now, when Sahib says that, my mother has kept them in the shelf and she hasn't given the chappals to me, and that is the reason why I'm barefoot. That is, I'm not wearing anything. But then the other boy in that group says that even if the mother gives him the chappals, he will not wear it. And that boy who is saying that, he himself is wearing unmatched pairs. Unmatched pairs mean that probably the shoes that he's wearing in his left on his right foot are different. Their design, their color, their pattern is different, right? And then the third boy from that group, he says that, I'm hopeful, I wish that when can I get shoes, because I've never owned a pair of shoes. I've never got a pair of shoes. So forget about, keeping it at some place in my house and not wearing it. I have never owned a pair of shoes. So, traveling across the country, I've seen children walking barefoot in cities on village roads. It is not lack of money, but a tradition to stay barefoot is one of the explanation. I wonder if this is only an excuse to explain away a perpetual state of poverty. So, after this conversation with the group of boys, the author, remembers that whenever she's traveled across the cities and villages of our country, she's seen that in various places she's found the children moving barefoot. That is without wearing shoes or slippers. And most probably whenever, it has been questioned, or the reason that has been given for this is that this is a tradition. So now the author keeps wondering that whether this is actually a tradition all the time, or it is a way to just not tell the real thing, that it is because they cannot own a shoe, they cannot afford to buy shoes. It is their poverty condition, their poor living conditions, the lack of money that they have, because of which they cannot buy shoe. So that is the perpetual state of poverty, the never ending, the continuous stage of poverty that these people are in, that they are not able to buy shoes. So the author is questioning that whether this is that stage of poverty that these families are, because of which they are not able to buy the shoe, or is it the tradition that they are saying is the reason behind them being barefoot. I remember a story a man from Udupi once told me. As a young boy, he would go to school past an old temple where his father was a priest. He would stop briefly at the temple and pray for a pair of shoes. 30 years later, I visited his town and the temple, which was now drowned in an air of desolation. In the backyard where lived the new priest, there were red and white plastic chairs. A young boy dressed in a grey uniform, wearing socks and shoes, arrived panting and threw his school bag on a folding bed. Looking at the boy, I remembered the prayer another boy had made to the goddess when he had finally got a pair of shoes. Let me never lose them. The goddess had granted his prayer. Young boys like the son of the priest now wore shoes, but many others like the rag pickers in my neighborhood remain shoeless. So this conversation about the shoes with Sahib and the group of boys, the author remembered another story, another incident about a young boy, about a small boy from Udupi. And what was the story of this small boy? So the story of the small boy was that this boy who lived in Udupi, so he was a son of a priest. And whenever he used to go to school, he used to stop at the temple where his father was a priest, and he used to pray for some time to the god, asking what? that I need a pair of shoes. So this boy, the son of the priest, was also not having shoes, and therefore every day while going to school, he stopped at the temple, prayed to God and goddesses that please give me a pair of shoes. And then the author remembers that how after few years, when she went back to the same town and she looked at the same temple, she realized that there was a new priest. And then there was a young boy who came there dressed in a proper uniform, wearing a pair of shoes. So at that point, the author realized that probably the god has granted him, the goddess has granted him this wish and fulfilled his wish of giving him a pair of shoes. And that boy, after he received that pair of shoes, he said that thank God, thank you for that, and now let me never lose them, which means I'll take care of them so much that I will never lose these pair of shoes. They are very, very precious. So she just remembers that how that little boy, eventually his prayer were answered and he was given a pair of shoes. And now she remembers and she contrasts that condition with these rag pickers, that is Sahib and the group of boys, and she says that now these boys, they are shoeless. So she's just comparing these two situations, the two instances, and one of that boy that she met few years back, and now the condition of Sahib and his friends. My acquaintance with the barefoot rag picker leads me to Simapuri, a place on the periphery of Delhi, yet miles away from it metaphorically. So now this rag picker that we're talking about, Sahib, where is he living? In the initial part of the story, we've seen that this boy was from Dhaka, but because of the house and the field getting destroyed of constant floods and storm, he and his family has migrated to India. And in India, they are living in a city of Delhi. And where in Delhi? In Simapuri. So Simapuri is a place which is famous because there is a very big slum, and many people like that, many such people live there. They have inhabited the places, they have kind of illegally built little houses for themselves, and they're living in these slums in very poor conditions. And this is an area where large number, or maximum we could say, the rag pickers, the garbage pickers are staying. So when we are saying that, the author says that this place, Simapuri, is however in the periphery of Delhi. Periphery means in the outskirts. That is not in the main city of Delhi, but in the outskirts of Delhi. But still it seems to be miles away, metaphorically. Miles away means that although the center of Delhi mein nahi hai Simapuri, it is in the outskirts. But the way Delhi is so developed, it is the capital city, the way it has such amazing life and everything. But here, this place Simapuri, which is just in the outskirts of Delhi, it seems to be so much away. Why? Because it's completely occupied by these garbage dumps and slums. It is not developed, and it doesn't seem to be a part of the capital city, right? Those who live here are squatters who came from Bangladesh back in 1971. Sahib's family is amongst them. Simapuri was then a wilderness. It still is, but it is no longer empty. In structures of mud with roofs of tin and tarpaulin, devoid of sewage, drainage or running water, live 10,000 rag pickers. So that's what I said, that this place is famous for the slums, for these places, for the little houses that are made of wood with roofs or tarpaulin. They're not properly built. They are so crowded. They are proper slums, and here most of the people from Bangladesh have migrated. They've occupied those places, and the living conditions are very poor. The basic necessities are not there. That is, proper roads is not there, proper drainage system is not there, sewage is not there. So very unhygienic, very clustered, but still these almost 10,000 rag picker families are living there. They have lived here for more than 30 years without an identity, without permits, but with ration cards that get their names on voters list and enable them to buy grain. Food is more important for survival than identity. So, although it has been 30 years that they've been living here in such conditions, but they do not have a proper identity. All that they have is a ration card with the help of which they are able to buy food. And for them, getting an identity card is not important, because for them, they are not having the basics of life, proper food, shelter, sanitation. It is not there. Education, it's not there. So for them, food is more important rather than having an identity. And they're living here, and these slums that they've built, they have inhabited over the past 30 years, that is also an illegal possession. They have illegally built the houses there, right? If at the end of the day, we can feed our families and go to bed without an aching stomach, we would rather live here than in the fields that gave us no grain. Say a group of women in tattered saris when I ask them why they left their beautiful land of green fields and rivers. So here the author is saying that, when I question these group of women who are obviously not properly dressed, or the saris that they are wearing are so old, it's faded and it's tattered, that it's worn, faded and it's faded and it's not proper and it's torn, right? So these women say that yes, we did have beautiful green fields, there was a river, but then those fields did not give us a grain, did not give us food. So it is better to leave behind those beautiful fields and the rivers, and it is better to live in such unhygienic conditions, because at least in these living conditions we are at least getting food, and it is a privilege for us that every day we feel that it is privilege if we are able to eat something and then go to bed, because there are days when we are even deprived of that. We go to bed without having a meal. So it is better to be in such living conditions where we are at least having greater probability of having food, rather than being in our own country where those fields were there but the fields were without grain. They were not getting us any food. So wherever they find food, they pitch their tents that become transit homes, which means wherever they feel that they are able to find food, they are just on a move. It's not like there is a permanent house that they've built. They're just moving continuously, look as per their food requirements. So transit home means temporary homes. Children grow up in them, becoming partners in survival. And survival in Simapuri means rag picking. Through the years, it has acquired the proportions of a fine art. Garbage to them is gold. It is their daily bread, a roof over their heads, even if it is a leaking roof. But for a child, it is even more. So they are saying that, because they have been living in such conditions from past 30 years, that even the children have now adapted to such conditions. Even though they know that yes, for them, the only thing that they have to do is they have to become rag pickers. They have to search in that garbage for things which for them is what? Which for them is gold, because it is necessary for their survival. And all these boys, all these young children, they grow up in these conditions, becoming rag pickers. They become partners for survival. And for them, this garbage is their daily bread. For them, it is the roof that they have built in. Even if it is a leaking roof, but still it is a form of shelter for them, and it is a privilege for them. I sometimes find a rupee, even a 10 rupee note, Sahib says, his eyes lighting up. When you can find a silver coin in a heap of garbage, you don't stop scrounging, for there is hope of finding more. It seems that for children, garbage has a meaning different from what it means to their parents. For the children, it is wrapped in wonder. For the elders, it is a means of survival. So here, Sahib is saying, getting the author, because all these things the author was thinking, was just recollecting. And at this point, Sahib is saying that, we are always searching for things that we may need, that could be useful for us in that garbage. And he's saying that many times, I tend to find a rupee, a coin, or even a 10 rupee note, and he's very happy about it. He's just, when he was saying this thing to the author, he had such, hopeful eyes, that happiness in his eyes, that yes, he has found a rupee, is found a 10 rupee note in that garbage. And then he says that whenever we tend to find such things, we become more hopeful, because for us that coin or that 10 rupee note is like silver, and when we get that, then we are hopeful of finding more, and therefore we just try to search more. And then for them, like for the children, garbage has a meaning that is different to what it means to their parents. For the children, it is wrapped in wonder. That is, whatever things are there, for them it is like a joy, that what they are finding, who will find what in the garbage. So for them it is a wonder, it is a thing of hope for them. Whereas for the elders, it is a means for survival. They are now lost, they're not excited, they're not hopeful. All they think is to find that much from the garbage which is necessary for their survival. So survival for elders and hope for children. This is what the garbage meant for the elders, and this is what the garbage meant for the little children. One winter morning, I see Sahib standing by the fenced gate of the neighborhood club, watching two young men dressed in white playing tennis. I like the game, he hums, content to watch it standing behind the fence. I go inside when no one is around, he admits. The gatekeeper lets me use the swing. Sahib too is wearing tennis shoes that look strange over his discolored shirt and shorts. So one day on a winter morning, the author sees or finds Sahib standing outside what? A fenced gate of the neighborhood club. So there is a club which is a gated club, and the author finds that this boy Sahib is just standing outside that gate and is looking inside. So what is he looking at? He is watching two young men or two young boys who are dressed in a proper attire to play tennis. They are dressed wearing that white uniform, the white dress, and they are playing tennis. And looking at them play, when the author comes next to Sahib, Sahib tells her that, I really like this game. I really like this game. But right now I am happy to watch it, watch others playing it. So it's not like right now I want to play and I want to go inside, but I'm happy, I'm satisfied standing outside the game, outside the gate and witnessing the game. However, Sahib tells the author that when no one is there inside the club, then the gate man, the security allows him to get inside and be there, enjoy the swings that are there. And then the author notices that Sahib himself at that day was wearing a discolored shirt, tennis shoes and discolored shorts. So Sahib too is wearing the tennis shoes that look strange over his discolored t-shirt or shirt and shorts. Discolored is faded. Someone gave them to me, he says in the manner of an explanation. So probably that boy is so smart that he realized that the author is having a look at his dress, and because it looks weird that his shoes are also, that he's wearing tennis shoes, and till now she's always found him barefoot, and even the dress that he was wearing was a tennis dress, but that was discolored, it was faded. So he, without asking, he himself told the author that someone who was inside who used to play tennis, someone gave this to me and therefore I am wearing it. The fact that they are discarded shoes of some rich boy who perhaps refused to wear them because of a hole in one of them does not bother him. For one who has walked barefoot, even shoes with a hole is a dream come true. So probably the shoes that he was wearing, in one of the shoe there was a small hole, and probably the shoes, the original owner of the shoe probably was a rich boy, and he did not want to wear it thinking that one shoe is having a hole. So he discarded it. That means he just gave it. And for Sahib, even if there was a hole in the shoe, it did not bother him, because all the time he did not had shoes, he did not have a pair of slippers, he was barefoot. So even wearing those shoes with hole was a dream for him. But the game he is watching so intently, that is so carefully, so dedicatedly and attentively rather, he's watching that game, is out of his reach. That is, obviously he is not that privileged to go inside and play that game. This morning, Sahib is on his way to the milk booth. In his hand is a steel canister. So this morning, again, there was another day, another morning, and the author finds Sahib carrying a milk. He's going to a milk booth and he's carrying a steel canister. That is a container that is made of steel. A steel container. I now work in a tea stall down the road, he says, pointing in the distance. I am paid 800 rupees and all my meals. So, without being questioned, here again we see that Sahib tells the author that now I am working in a milk booth, which is just down the road, and I am getting 800 rupees for that, and I am also getting my meals. That is, the food is also being given to me. Does he like the job? I asked. His face, I see, has lost the carefree look. The steel canister seems heavier than the plastic bag he would carry so lightly over his shoulder. The bag was his. The canister belongs to the man who owns the tea shop. Sahib is no longer his own master. So, when Sahib told the author that yes, now I am working in a milk booth and they are paying me 800 rupees, they are giving me food. But when the author questioned him that, are you happy with that job? Then she saw that the poor boy, his face lost that happiness, that hope. And why? Because the steel canister, the milk container that he was carrying, was not his thing. That is, it did not belong to him. He was carrying in that thing, that steel canister, the steel container, belonged to the owner of the milk booth. Yes, so he had a master. And whereas the heavy plastic garbage bag that he used to carry every day, which seemed so light for him to carry, was actually his. It belonged to him. Whereas now, this container does not belong to him but to the master, to the owner of the milk booth. So Sahib is no longer his own master. So here the story comes to an end, which basically tells us about one situation, one small incident, about one small boy out of many who are present. There are many Sahib in this world, and we just had a small story talking about one. That how their condition of a rag picker, the small boy, is so different from the normal people who go to school, have proper food, their families take care of them, and their innocence as a child is there. They are nurtured properly. But here, Sahib and the group of boys, that is his friends, the conditions that they live in are not proper. They are working in unhygienic conditions. They do not have proper meal. Proper health care is not there, education is deprived of. So therefore, these living conditions they are in, we say, is taking away their innocence, or rather has taken away their innocence, and they now have a very exploitative childhood. Therefore, we say that their childhood is taken away from them, and therefore this is a lost spring. The childhood, the innocence of a child, the nurturing of a child is not there, right? So this was the first story about Sahib, who was a rag picker.